Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm super thrilled to be here with you. I hope that you're having a wonderful new year and that you are remaining gritty in all that you do. With that said, I do have a couple of announcements for you guys. First things first, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on Spotify and all of the social media platforms. Speaking of my platforms, you've got Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. I want to also encourage you to please check out my website whenever you get a chance at www.india-white.com. If you're wanting to schedule me for, an event or check out some books or blogs, I'm here for you. I know many different leaders have been scheduling me, and I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. It has already been a very busy year, and I'm super excited to join you guys in many of your grit launches, grit trainings, and just resetting your culture of your school environments or, of your businesses and whatnot. And so with that said, I do want to also kind of let you guys know of some of my upcoming events, just so that you're aware of these events. And in case you're wanting to squeeze me in your calendar, you know what to do. So first things first, I want to thank IAFOR conference leaders for the wonderful time we had in Hawaii, as I was able to speak on equity and even talk about grit to all of the leaders all over the nation and all over the globe, from Japan and Canada, South Africa, and beyond. We also, I'm super excited about Stockton County, California School District, where I'll be doing a grit training there next week. So I'm super excited to see you guys. And also, I will be in ICTM conference in Indiana. Super excited to see you, rock stars in Indiana. Can't wait to talk with all of you guys about grit and how we can bridge the gap and remain gritty throughout the school year. I also am thankful to Orlando and his crew at the Career Talks podcast. We had a wonderful time talking about how we could develop grit. That was aired this week, and I'm super thankful for that. And I'm also thankful for the opportunity to speak at the Amplify Her conference as a special guest. Thank you to the Amplify Her conference committee team and everyone for counting me as a good fit for this amazing event with women empowerment and beyond. And so with that said, I also am starting to glance into February. I'm starting to see there are already many opportunities on the table, and many of you have been reaching out. If you are interested in me coming and doing some great workshops and trainings, please do not hesitate to contact me. You see my information scrolling below. My email is india.white.123@gmail.com. I'm here to service you guys. I also want to celebrate again the launch of the Grit calendar, which I was able to launch. I actually have a little copy with me. I hope that you guys will be able to see it on screen. It is the Grit calendar. It's really awesome. And we're going to be talking about grit. And it's really aligned for you to help you kind of look at grit throughout the year. I also have a Grit weekly planner for you guys, so that if you're wanting to plan out your year and be on top of things, check out the Grit weekly planner. If you're wanting those resources, please visit my website, www.india-white.com, for those. Now, with that said, I want to just talk about how I'm so thrilled to talk about grit and talk about grit in the real world and numeracy and the relevancy of grit. And I think so many times we only associate grit or, gritty practices, especially on this platform, with like education, academia. But what about grit in the everyday workspace? What about grit for entrepreneurs and different people that are helping us out in different ways? And so with that said, I wanted to bring onto our show a contractor, someone who is actually a dear friend and someone who I know is very gritty at what they do. And they are building houses from the ground up, doing fabulous work. And with that said, I'm going to bring onto the podcast now a special guest, contractor Brian Craig with the BNI Painting and Consulting. I'm super happy to have you on board, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I do painting and remodeling. I basically, like you said, I build houses from the ground up. I do every area of expertise, from foundational to plumbing to flooring to hanging drywall to doing tile work, interior, exterior work. I can also design new additions for the house. I've done a couple exterior designs I can also do exterior yard work, interior house remodeling, kitchen cabinet refinishing, you name it. I can actually take care of it. It's like a one-stop shop for contracting. So it's my goal and my dream to provide a service and a business that takes care of everything for the customer.
Wow, this is a that was a mouthful, and I don't even understand half of what you said. So, can you relate to our audience? Like, how did you get into this world of contracting, and how did grit help you along your journey?
Well, growing up at the age of 8 years old, back in the 80s and early 90s, it's back then you could actually go to work with your parents. So my dad took me in his van, and I would actually he put a paintbrush in my hand and started teaching me the odds and ends of actually how to paint a house. Of course, I didn't get money back then, but it went to dad. It's bills had to be paid. So I learned at a very young age that no matter what you do or how you do it, you still have to live life and you have to push through and you have to make sure that you take care of those responsibilities of life.
Wow. So, talk about then a time where you were transitioning, and you knew that you wanted to make more of this as as a contractor that you are today. How were you able to use grit in this particular profession to say, I think it's more than just having fun with the paintbrush. I actually want to do this for a living. Like, what sparked that interest in you?
What sparked that interest in me was I had a lady. I was actually doing just painting with my dad, and I was at the age of 19 years old, and I ventured out and I did a job on my own, which my dad ended up passing me that job. But I'll never forget the old lady that I worked for. And what she did is she took me onto her computer. She asked me to do the tile in her kitchen. And I said, ma'am, I don't know how to do tile. And she's like, well, why not? And I was like, because I don't know how to do it. That's not my expertise. And she was like, well, that's not an excuse. And I was like, wow, okay. I kind of didn't know how to respond to that. So she kind of took me in as a son because I guess her son had passed away and he was a contractor. So she took me to the side and put me onto a computer and put me on YouTube and said, I'm going to pay you double to do my kitchen tile floor, and I want you to study and I want you to push through. And because of that lady pushing me through, I learned that I can do anything. It's
Wow.
whatever you push your mind to, you're able to do whatever you want to and accomplish whatever you want. It's just most people put limitations on their own mind when they don't need to. So I learned at a young age to not have to do that and to push through. And I guess that's what grit really stands for is to be able to push through no matter what and to be able to accomplish. Not only it's not even about the money, it's about putting the smile on the customer's face and showing up to a house after you've painted their house in one day and the customer starts crying and gives you a hug. That right there is priceless to me. And that's what I look forward to. That's what pushes me and that's what makes me want to do what I do, because that right there gives me the utmost passion for what I do. It's being a servant above everything else and being a godly person to other people and letting my light shine.
Wow, you said a mouthful there, and I want to commend you for the work that you've done and the smiles that you've put on people's faces across the nation. But I think of grit when you're talking about you having to study tile and you never worked on tile before. Like, that whole process was gritty. But what do you do in times that maybe you felt like giving up? You're like, I don't really want to know about this. I don't really want to take on this project or whatever. Like, how do you remain gritty and resilient to finish the tasks at hand?
Because you want to push through. Like I said, it's that smile on the customer's face. So at the end of the day, whenever you're not wanting to push through, you're tired, you're weary, you got a lot of other things going on in your mind, you still want that customer to be happy. I think at the end result, the main thing that you need to focus on is making the other person happy. So I mean, most of us try to be selfish and make ourselves happy, but if you make someone else happy and you give them that smile and that resilience, it stands better than words. It's remarkable.
Wow. Um, this makes me think, because you were just talking about just godly, being a godly person and all this. And so I know I'm talking mostly to educators, and we're trying to figure out how to help our students be gritty, but I think maybe you can help us with some, just some wisdom as to how you've been gritty in your scope of work as a contractor, and maybe some advice that you have for educators. Just in general, what advice do you have for educators when it comes down to building grit, maybe building grit in students or building grit in their task, in their everyday work?
Well, I would say in their everyday work, I mean, teaching kids that's our future. I mean, so my condolences go out to every teacher that's out there, because that is a hard job, especially knowing that the future is within their hands. But teaching them mainly math, math solves everything. I love math. Math goes into everything. Numbers never lie. I mean, and then also on top of that, you learn how to do things the right way. It's just I mean, I guess just pushing them and showing them kindness, and allowing them to allow their heart to grow the right way. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
teachers are amazing. They really are. I had a lot of good teachers whenever I was a kid. So
So talk to me about one of the teachers that maybe helped you into the craft that you're doing today as a contractor. Maybe somebody inspired you, and maybe you had a good math teacher or something. And what stuck with you? What worked?
what stuck with me is growing up, I had a coach, but he wasn't just my coach. He also ran his painting and remodeling business as well. He was good friends with my dad. And to see him to not only teach the kids, but then to get off from school and go to work and paint a house or remodel a house, just to make sure the ends met back then. I mean, because back then, growing up in the 1990s, it just wasn't easy. It's not easy nowadays either. It's even worse nowadays than what it was back then. So because of the economy is not as good as it once was. It's just seeing someone push through and work that much just to be able to make sure that their kids had what what they didn't have, and that's what it matters to me as well. I think that's one of my pushes as well, is for me to push so that my kids don't have to grow up the way that I did in the poverty that I grew into. I mean, I went from my mom's house to my dad's house, from my dad's house going next door to the neighbors, getting flour just to be able to eat.
Hmm.
So I don't want my kids doing the same exact thing.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Um, I also want to talk a little bit about your growth mindset. You seem very gritty with all of the different tasks that you're doing, and it seems like you have a very optimistic growth mindset type of attitude, especially like when you're walking on a job site and things are just in rubbish. Like, how do you develop a growth mindset to say, I'm going to turn this thing around into a beautiful home or whatever it is? Like what's that process like for you?
I guess because I could see where the house is at, and I have like a photographic memory from the jobs that I've done. So I can see the house's potential. I can see what it can turn into. And then also I can try to provide my customers with cheap alternative methods to be able to fit their budget as well. It's just, I can visualize it. I love that part.
So then tell me, how can teachers do the same with their students?
I would say to build a visualization in their mind. And if a kid is dreaming about being a contractor or being a painter or something, I would say to encourage them to what makes them happy. Nobody wants to get up and go to work for something that they don't really like doing. So if you get up and go to work for something that you love doing, you're going to put more passion into it. You're going to put more emphasis into it. You're going to put your all into it. So I would say the reason that I like doing it is because not only the smiles, but it's the hands-on. It's being able to work with my hands and be able to get that smile at the end of the day, and saying, "Hey, wow, I did this.
Wow.
Wow, I flipped this house, or I painted this house, or I did this bathroom remodel, or I redid these kitchen cabinets." And at the end of it, at the beginning of it, you're looking at it like, wow, I got a lot of work ahead of me. But at the end of it, the accomplishment at the end is phenomenal. And that's what I think what keeps pushing me from job to job.
Wow. And it seems like you're very, you mentioned God and being God fearing and all this. So I kind of want to ask too, talk about a spiritual time when you use grit.
There's a time when I used grit. Mm. I mean, I would say that I use grit almost on every job. I mean, it's before I do a job, I pray about it. Um, During a job, I pray about it. It's just what brings to my focus is whenever Jesus Christ got on his hands and knees and washed his disciples' feet, he was a servant to mankind. And that's what I love about that part is because I'm also a servant to mankind. And he was a carpenter. He was able to build things with his hands to put smiles on people's faces, to show that light, to be able to do things for others. Because if you do something for other people, it's going to warm their heart. It's going to make them open to you. And I've seen in the field, even on certain jobs, that customer may not be living their life for God, but because they've seen the light shine through me, I'm actually able to pray for them. I'm actually able. I've prayed for a lot of my customers, so that it's quite amazing.
Wow. So that's very interesting because there's almost a spiritual aspect to the things that you do as you're building, and I feel like for those out there that are religious or into maybe the field of Christianity, which that's been my main focus in my life personally. But it seems like there's a God aspect to that, being able to build up a home and build up a life and help a family. And so I don't know, like what advice do you have for maybe someone maybe they're trying to build their life, maybe they're trying to start over, maybe they have some rubbish areas in their life, like how can they go and be gritty and have like a growth mindset as they're trying to maybe start over?
Well, as you start over, you got to set yourself boundaries, and then you also have to set yourself goals. I would say one day at a time. Just push forward through each day as it is your last, just like the Bible says. Just live each day and do what you can in today. Push forward with all your might and do what you're supposed to do today, because tomorrow is not promised. So if you push every single day and you push as hard as you can, 6 months from now, you're going to be where you want to be.
Right. And so this makes me think. So, Brian, I have an acronym for GRIT, and it's Great Resilience in Time. And in this, I'm talking about how you have to have the more resilience you have over a short amount of time, then the more grit you have, right? And then the less resilience you have over a greater amount of time, then the less grit you have. Can you talk to us about your journey of resilience and how maybe like when did your resilience spark kick in? Was it childhood? Was it, your later days? Talk to us about how you tapped into that resilience personally to become the successful contractor that you are today.
I would say in childhood, because I didn't want to grow up in poverty. I wanted better things in life. And the only way to get better things in life is to work hard to get it. So I would say childhood, because you got to push and push and push to be able to accomplish your goals, to be able to accomplish what you want out of life. Life is whatever we make it. Some people look at it, no, life was handed to me. No, life is your choices, your actions, because it all starts from a thought to a choice to an action. So if that's the case, then our actions are what represent what we are and who we are as a person. So if you are pushing through with your actions every single day, you're going to accomplish things. But if you show the lazy mindset, or I don't want to do this, and you allow it to get to you, then that's going to show in your actions as well. So it depends on the mindset of the person. So that actually relates back to the teachers, because if the teachers are pushing the child to actively get involved with their own mindset, then that's going to push the child to go even further than what they would have done. So,
Right.
I mean, I would say that would be better, because if you had teachers like that back in my school, I would have probably went a lot further than what I am now.
Yeah. Wow. So how can a teacher help a student? Maybe they're on the verge of dropping out and they don't see the point of school. I mean, you do work in contract, you do math and things like that. Maybe you could talk about the numeracy or like the relevancy of the real world picture of math in the world that you do every day. Like how often do you use math? How real is it? And maybe give some teachers advice so that they can help students to stay engaged.
I use math on everything. It's not only from the painting to finding out how much paint per gallon per square foot. It's math goes into everything to find out how do I frame out this building? How do I frame out this door? How do I install this door? Or how do I measure out for the tile for the square footage of this area of the room that I'm actually doing the tile in? So it's math goes into play quite a bit whenever you're a contractor. I would say to the person that's about to drop out, I would ask the teacher to get more involved in the child's life to find out why this child feels this way. Is there something going on at home? Does he want to not do school because other things are into play into the child's life? I mean, nowadays, you got to get involved. If you don't get involved with the child's going to feel like nobody cares about the child. And if the child feels like that, he or she's not going to want to be there. So if you're more involved and you're making the child feel belonged, then the child's going to want to stay.
Yeah. And so what was something that maybe you had a star teacher that did that for you? What were some of the things that teacher did? Do you have a teacher that you can remember that you're like, wow, they were gritty, or they were just really made you feel like you belong? Do you have one that you can think of?
I did have a teacher that did that. Her name was Miss Como, and she was actually in middle school. And what she done was after school, because my parents couldn't pick me up, she made sure she tutored me after school with no charge. And she pushed me to be greater. And she said, Brian, you have a great mind. And those words of confirmation, those stuck with me because hearing that you have a great mind, hearing that you are going to be somebody, encouragement stood out a lot more than anything because that's what pushed me. That's what said, hey, I don't deserve this. I need better in my life. And I would say to the teachers to try to do the same exact thing for their students in the classroom setting. Because if you tell the child that they're great, hey, you're doing good, I'm proud of you, those words is what means everything.
Wow. And I hope teachers are listening, and, I hope principals and leaders across the nation are listening to this, because, we are constantly trying to bridge the achievement gap, and it's going to take us a couple hundred years to do so. And so I think, you're going somewhere with this when it talks about words of affirmation. And for those that know my work, that I also am into doing words of affirmation with my grit posters and, grit games and things like that. So I think this is right alongside of the work that I have been doing with grit. And so with that said, Brian, I want to also just ask you about, like, in general, if you had advice for, whether maybe it's a parent or a teacher that maybe they're at their wits' end and they want to give up. Maybe they're burned out. How can they push through?
I would say to push through because us as parents, and I'd start with the parents, us as parents, we live busy lives. We work all day, we get caught up in the moment. Like me, I mean, I can work from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, and I get lost into my own world. But then you have to check yourself and say, hey, you know what? This is taking away from my family time. This is taking away from my kids. So once you catch yourself, and that's the big thing to parents, is you have to look at your daily lifestyle and say, does this fit for my family? Does this fit for me? And if it doesn't, then I would suggest removing it. Only because the child does need the parents at home, not just the schools, because at school, yeah, you're going to have your teacher and everything, but it's not just the teacher's responsibility to raise the kid. And most days nowadays, the child is released to the school where the teacher is actually raising the kid. And I don't think that that's fair onto the teachers. But with saying that to the teachers, I would be more encouraging and give them positive words, because that child may not be getting it at home. That
Mm-hmm.
child might not be getting it at all. And the only person that they're getting encouragement from is the teacher. So if it's the teacher's responsibility, because the parents are either one, too ignorant to be able to realize that they have a child to raise, or two, they're too busy in life, I would say that the teacher is carrying a major role, because that major role is providing a future for our own mankind.
Yeah. So then, I mean, you said a mouthful there, because I feel like the elephant in the room is parent involvement. We're doing all that we can, in the world of education, but like you're a parent yourself. So what can we do to get parents involved, to spark more grit in our parents? To let them say, come on, like get invested, like care, do something. What advice do you have for parents out there? Like how?
Well,
Yeah.
I would say if the teacher's trying to get the parent involved, then you do a daily worksheet. You send flyers home. You send certain things to where the parent has to sign off on it. So if the teacher's trying to get the parent involved, then you force the parent to get involved. And you force the things like the work assignments. Hey, this has to be between son and daughter, or parent and kid. It has to go with both. So if you send flyers home or worksheets home, that the parent has to do it with the child instead of the child doing it alone, then that gets the parent more involved with the homework. It gets the parent more involved with the child.
Right. That's fabulous. And I know many different textbook curriculums do that as well. And so I think you're spot on, and you're right in alignment with what I've already seen taking place in the world of education. So with that said, Brian, I just want to say, like, when you think about your grit journey and how gritty you've been over your life, was there one moment that kind of stood out from everything else where your grit just took off, as a contractor and the work that you do? Was there like one thing that said, okay, this is it, and like ever since then you have been unstoppable? Can you tell us about that?
I would say it would be whenever I did that tile job for that lady.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would be able to do it. And then after studying it, and I mean, the lady went and bought me the tile saw. She went and bought me all the tools, and she paid me double. Then on top of that, she gave me a tip after I was done, because I sat there and cried, not understanding how I just did all of this work, but I did what I was showed in the videos.
Oh,
So I guess I thank God, because I have that photographic memory, and I
yeah.
have that ability to watch other people, and then I can also mimic what they've done. But now I've taken it to a new level, and it intrigued me, because, hey, if I'm able to do it off of watching a video, then what other ways can I do it to make it easier for myself and also train other employees? And then also, it's not about me being able to learn it. It's about teaching others, because if I teach others, then I'm teaching them a trade. That trade can help them feed their family. So that's really important to me too, because then I'm not only caring about myself, I'm caring about them, and then also their family as well. I've actually had a couple people that worked with me, and I actually helped them start up their own business.
Wow.
So it's not just about me, it's about helping others.
Wow. Well, this is fabulous, Brian. And so thank you so much again, Brian, for joining us on the Let's Get Gritty podcast. Now, can you tell us what areas you service? How can we contact you?
I service all the way from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way down to Sarasota, almost every single county in between. They can contact me on Facebook or via my website, B&I Custom Painting and Remodeling LLC.com. Or they can just call my cell phone number at 813-284-8448. I'm available most of the time. That's not only my personal phone, but that's also my work phone. So they can contact me anytime.
Awesome. Well, this is wonderful. And I'm so thankful that you were able to join us today on the Let's Get Gritty podcast. I'm so thankful for the work that you've done. And so with that said, guys, thanks so much for joining me again today on the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. And just to remind you of my announcements, this will be featured again on Spotify and all of my main social media outlets. So make sure you're following up with me there. And my social media outlets for you guys, Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube is India White123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. Also, please check out my website at www.india-white.com for books, blogs, or to schedule me for your next event. I'm looking forward to many events coming up in the future. Next week is a wonderful week for all of us. I'm looking forward not only to next week, but to the Amplify Her conference at the end of this week. Thank you to all of those for having me there. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Stockton, California, and also in Indiana. And with that said, guys, till next time, stay gritty. See ya.